Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, osia dem yopo.
The Energy Finance Ministry meeting would have to look at what must be suspended temporarily and what cannot be suspended temporarily. So you have the energy sector shortfall and debt repayment levy, you have road fund levy, you have energy fund levy, you have special petroleum tax, you have primary distribution margin, you have bus margin, you have fuel marking margin, you have the UPPF, you have distribution compensation margin, you have LPG filling plant administration or admin cost. And all of that, you'd see its impact on petrol and diesel. And the purpose have also been stated why all of them have been put there. Okay, so let me pick your thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, I think that price reductions of any commodity, of any good, usually is seen as a boost to the consumer, and it's supposed to make the consumer happy and so on. So that's basic. Now, in the case of petroleum pricing and so on, if the Herald report is true, and I think that the Herald is a credible newspaper, I have no doubt at all that the Herald report is true, then it would mean that there's going to be a reduction of about 5 cedis per gallon, right, dependent on what gallon you're talking about, whether you're talking about the imperial gallon or you're talking about the American gallon and so on. But close to 5 cedis per gallon, which is very, very significant. It's a huge amount, you understand. Now, if you look at the price build-up, and I've taken the trouble to be studying the price build-up for a number of years, okay, and it's good that Egyapa is here. The assumed price, the base price, is an assumed price. If you look at the price build-up, there's ex-Rotterdam. That simply means that you assume that if you are buying refined petrol from Rotterdam, that would be the price. Okay. Now, because it's an assumed price, it is possible that you can find some savings in there. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Because it's an assumed price.
I follow.
It is possible that you can find some savings in there. And then you would also find that usually, if you look at the price build-up, almost about 50% of the ex-pump price, that is the price at which you buy petrol at the filling station, is made up of taxes and levies. Some of the taxes and levies are crucial. For example, there is the BOST levy, which enables BOST to buy oil and to store for emergencies. So it's so crucial that I would wonder if any government would want to tamper with that. Then there's a margin which enables the marketing company to sell fuel at the same price everywhere in the country. I think that's the PPF margin or so. Okay. That, I think, would also be very reckless if any government would touch that. So this is just about the price build-up. But you see, moral, whatever you take from petroleum pricing, whatever you do to reduce petroleum pricing would have an impact somewhere else. They presented a budget to Parliament, it has been approved. And that budget was based on the assumption that all the revenues we expected from petroleum products and others, would be accumulated in order to facilitate others. So if today you reduce the price of petroleum products, you reduce the taxes of petroleum products, it does mean that some other sector will be hemorrhaging, will suffer. And I want to know what that impact is to enable me to discuss it, in a holistic manner. As we sit here, we don't know what that impact is going to be. From where are we going to take resources, to plug in the hole, which will come about as a result of this reduction of the petroleum price by almost 5 cedis, to a gallon. So that's an important discussion that I would like to have. Now, my friend and brother, Japan, makes the point that the world is structured in such a way that conflicts around the world, tend to have universal impact. That's a true statement. But the conflicts have different impacts. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz would not have the same impact as the Russian-Ukraine conflict.
How so?
There are different dynamics and so on. You know it, I don't have to say. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is not in Ukraine and is not in Russia. And in fact, the Strait of Hormuz directly affects, impacts energy pricing. You understand?
Right.
Because of its nature, about 20% of the world's energy resources passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And in fact, the Strait of Hormuz is located in centers which produce most of the energy resources of the world and so on. So clearly, its impact will be different. Now, I'm one of those who criticized the last administration, the New Patriotic Party, for its handling of COVID and its claims that COVID was responsible for the economic malaise we suffered in those days. And my brother Egyapa knows. I don't have to repeat it, he knows. When you have a situation where you've been hit by COVID, and it's having such a terrible impact on the country, and you go soliciting for foreign assistance, and the assistance comes, and your parliamentary candidates publicly claim that the COVID relief funds, parts of the COVID relief funds, were given to them to organize their campaigns. That's a problem. And if I'm lying, please say so. So that was the problem. Your own parliamentary candidates came public and said, look, we got COVID funds to run our campaigns. That's a problem. You understand? Now, for me, and then we saw the chaotic attempt to distribute food, to vulnerable sections of society and so on. All of that, we saw it. So please, do not let us reduce this to just questions of increases in prices and inflation and so on. There were other issues which were involved. Okay. Now, last week, I read the FITS report on petroleum pricing in Ghana and so on. And FITS indicated that this conflict, this aggression on Iran by the United States of America and Israel, would not impact the Ghanaian economy so negatively, and that we expected to close the year with a reasonably robust, microeconomy. And FIT's argument basically is that, look, Ghana is a net producer of crude itself, okay? And if the price goes up, Ghana also gains in that respect, and that we can use some of those resources to net off the impact on the global oil prices and so on. But interestingly, FITS also indicated that as a result of this crisis, gold prices are shooting through the skies. And by the end of the year, gold prices are likely to hit more than $4,000 per ounce or so, from 2,000 and something, And then we can also use that to net off the impact, So, look, the business of government is to minimize the suffering that occurs in society as a result of foreign conflict, as a result of natural disasters as well. If it were not because of these things, we would not need governments, okay? So this is government's business, and the president has rightly instructed that the ministers of finance and energy should put their heads together and work out some measures which would alleviate the suffering of the people. We are waiting. We are told that today, some of those measures will be made public. The Herald is saying that it knows what some of those measures will be and has announced them. When the measures are announced, we will look at them, and then make our own independent decisions about how overall it would affect the economy, what is possible to do and what is not possible to do, and so on. So we are still waiting.
Because the next pricing window is actually tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
And the decisions that will be taken today would have an effect on the pricing window.
Yeah, on the price,
yes.
But Kwesi, I don't know why you took us to COVID.
Because you did.
I didn't mention COVID.
You did.
I didn't. I did not mention COVID at all.
You mentioned Russia, Ukraine.
I mentioned Russia, Ukraine, because COVID had its own dynamics. The Russian-Ukraine issue, I mentioned disrupted global supply chain. And that impacted every country across the world. In fact, in the almighty United States of America, you recall, even toilet paper was being rationed in supermarkets. Inflation jumped to all-time highs across the world. So I did not mention COVID at all in my analysis. And if we want to go there, we can go there. But I don't think it's necessary. The point that I'm making is this. And you see, if your issue about Russia, Ukraine's impact being different from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is actually the case, prices should go way higher than what it did in 2022. But it hasn't gotten to even $120 per barrel yet. But in 2022, it went as high as $130 per barrel. Second, if Hormuz produces about 20% of global supply of crude. Not the most, it's only 20%. Ghana doesn't take from Hormuz. We don't. But I'm saying that the impact will still be felt because regardless of your supply source, the price, Brent price, is what is going to determine how much the producer is selling to you. Not where the source of fuel directly is coming from. Same way Russia-Ukraine impacted the disruption of supply chain to the extent that container from China, which doesn't go anywhere close to Russia and Ukraine, moved from average $2,500 to $15,000. It happened because of the disruption in the supply chain. That's all I'm saying. And so I'm urging all of us to take away the politicking out of it. Because today is NDC. Yesterday was MPP. They played politics heavy with it. We can do the same, but tomorrow it will be us. So at what point do we end? I'm only saying that, look, let's communicate to our citizens to appreciate the reality of what it is that issues that are not within our control can impact all of us. It's a difficult position that Ato and John are in. I know, and like you said, he's made his projections on the revenue that is going to come from here. Even a 50 peso reduction is going to impact him some way, somehow. It's going to impact him. And he has to find alternatives. Of course, I agree that on the flip side, because Ghana also exports crude, we are going to make some gains from the increases in the prices on that front. And so you can find a way to even it out, okay? But remember, all that crude doesn't belong to us. And so it's only a component of it that will come to us. And if we are even unlucky not to be lifting within this window where the prices have gone up, Ghana as a country will not have any benefit. Because the liftings are such that you don't lift all and share the proceeds thereof. Every party lifts at a certain time based on production. So that's what the point that I'm making.
Yeah, but you see, there's still a problem there. Because it's a fact that even as we admit that anything that happens around the globe can have universal impact, the impact will be different. That's a fact.
Yes,
okay.
I agree. And Russia, Ukraine had a greater impact on crude prices than Hormuz closure.
That's your assessment.
But that's a fact. No. The data is there.
No, please.
The data is there. It's just not something that I'm conjuring from the sky. The numbers are there. And I'll pull it up for you in a minute.
Okay. So the point is that the impact would not be the same. It will be different. And there will be other variables, to take account of and so on. So that's very clear. Now I recognize that you did not, mention COVID-19 and its impact and so on. But it still speaks to prudence in the management of public resources. it still speaks to prudence in the management of public resources at a time of national emergencies and so on. So that point is adequately, made. Now, again, you yourself make the point that even though Ghana would not be lifting its oil from sources that may be close to the Strait of Hormuz and so on, the impact will be global. So that's a moot point. There's no need to carry on. The point is that whatever we use in order to lessen the impact on the consumer of petroleum products, we leave another hole somewhere.
Right.
And therefore, we have to have a holistic discussion, about the general impact, the global impact of this.
I agree with you, but you see, it's important to make this point. Look, we can't take the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war on our economy out of context, though, and the consequences thereof out of context. Because remember that by December 31st of 2021, the Parliament of Ghana had breached Section 22 of the Public Financial Management Act, which enjoined Parliament to pass the budget, the appropriations and the revenue measures that will go to implement the budget by 31st December. By 31st December, we had passed the budget, approved appropriations, and failed to approve the revenue measures that will go to fund the budget. It had consequences before the Russia-Ukraine thing started. We saw the capital flight between January and February. We were here. So if you talk of prudence, what does it mean? People played politics with the destiny of this country because of the numbers in Parliament. I was there. We lived it. So let's not belittle the impact of those unpatriotic actions on the people of Ghana. It was real. Akufo-Addo government suffered for it. It passed. We lost the election, fair and square, no issues. But the historical fact cannot be disrupted. We agree. These are matters of fact.
What I find extremely interesting is in the past position that, we will not play politics with it. We will recognize the reality as well. But he goes round and comes back and plays the same politics with it. What's the problem?
You make the point about prudence, and I'm trying to set the record straight. That look.
Can I finish, sir? Sir, can I finish?
Please.
You are either playing politics with it or you are not. But to say that I'm not going to play politics with it and come back and play politics with it is problematic.
And what's the politics I played? I'm only setting the record straight. That these were the realities of the Ghanaian economy at the time. I was in Parliament. We saw the kinds of things that happened. We saw it. And it had huge implications on our economy. Then the Russian-Ukraine war came to compound it, such that by the time that we came back in April, after the recess to pass the revenue measures that was supposed to have been done in accordance with the laws of Ghana by 31st December, the horses had bolted. So the government didn't have any choice. So if you talk of prudence, let's situate it in the proper context. Okay. That's all.
Okay, my brother. So the bottom line is that you think that the people of Ghana made a mistake in voting you out of power?
I haven't said so. It's their legitimate.
So what is the point you're trying to make?
But so what do you mean? What's the point? I'm setting the record straight.
So what is the point you're trying to make?
Look. So the truth.
That we made a mistake in voting you out.
And
that everything was going well. It was only NDC deception that you bought.
I haven't said so.
Led to your defeat.
I haven't said so at all.
So speak well.
Wait,
say what you want to say.
Please. The statement that I've made is a matter of fact. It had implications. People suffered. It had huge implications on the people, such that when the government took a decision that, look, we don't have the resources to back the economy, and so we needed to go to IMF. The actions or the program outcome led to huge difficulties for people of Ghana. True.
Boss, can I have
and that informed their voting pattern in December 2024. And there's no doubt at all. But I'm saying that you cannot attribute you can't take those things that happened and throw them as pretend as if they were not issues that impacted us negatively. That's all.
You see, today, this is not my view. This is the front page of the graphic today. And the front page of the graphic today reports that in spite of all these hiccups, the Strait of Hormuz and so on, Ghana's economy remains stable. I am not expected, and I do not use the analysis of the World Bank and the IMF and so on. You know, I try to go beyond that. But you believe in those analyses.
But
The
please speak
two
for yourself.
institutions, please.
You speak for yourself.
I'm speaking for myself.
But why are you saying that I believe in those institutions? Have I told you that I believe in those
Ideological position.
I'm asking you whether I've told you that.
Ideological
Have I told you I believe in
You
those
have to tell me.
Yes, I
You
have
are
to tell
part
you.
of the government who pursued the neoliberal party development.
So,
Were you not?
so because of that, I believe in those
You
institutions.
didn't believe in the
You make your
neoliberal
point
party
after when I have a rebuttal. I'll
Are you saying that you don't believe in the neoliberal?
You make your point. Make your point.
That's the point I'm making. It's a valid point.
The institution you don't believe in, you are referencing their comments.
Because I suspect, at least, that you have faith in those institutions based on your public record. And that is why I'm referencing those institutions.
See.
Okay.
But you don't believe in them.
At all. I've never.
So why are you making reference to their comments?
I'm making reference to their comments because you agree with those institutions on the path to development. And that has been demonstrated by your public record.
Oh my. Anyway, you make your point.
Yes. So I'm saying that in spite of all of this, the verdict, their verdict, which should have been your verdict, you know, is that the economy is stable. And that we are not suffering some of the hiccups we suffered, you know, when the Ukraine-Russian war broke out. You understand? The last time I heard of the rate of inflation, it was still below 4%. The Strait of Hormuz has not changed the rate of inflation and so on. So that's the point I want to make. That's all. And this is the story.
Yes, and we're not going to change. We're not going to change. Just a second. We need to take a break.
Very well.
I beg, we need to take a break because I don't want us to change the time we go on break when the conversation starts. You're watching Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. I have my own set of questions to ask, but when we're back from the break.
I'm not PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.